Hey guys, for this service, we're going to tone down my client's brassiness and give her a cooler mushroom brown tone. So keep watching to see how we tackled this service. You can find me on Instagram at Christy at the Cottage. All right, here's my client's before. She has a couple of inches of grow out and just overall too brassy and wanting to add some depth and tone down her hair. So we're going to do half 521 and half 616 with 6 volume. And we're just going to go through her hair and start foiling in some dimension. This is the first time doing this client, and when she got her hair done before, she went in for a balayage, and she said they just like overly lightened her hair, and she just feels too warm and too brassy all over. So what we're going to do is add some depth and tone down all of this like orangey tone that she has. So I'm going to use these ashier tones in her hair to cancel out the warmth and help give it more of a mushroomy ashier tone. So that's why we have to use a little bit darker of a color with that level 5. If we just did like a level 6 or 7 to tone down the hair, it wouldn't necessarily like give it an ashier tone. When you want a client, or when a client wants to have like an actual like true ashy tone to the hair, you have to tone down about 1 to 2 shades darker than where they currently sit at to get like a true ash, or else you're just going to neutralize the tone and create like a neutral brown tone. Also, I want to say that she did not want to have to use any lightener in the service today. She's getting married, and so we wanted to stay away from lightener. Also, never having done her hair, I didn't want to risk anything, especially with the wedding coming right up. So you're going to see me foiling, and I'm going to be weaving out any of the lightest pieces that she has in her hair, and we're going to preserve that for like her higher contrast, brighter pieces that we're going to tone down later in the service. All right, so I'm just going to keep on working my way up the head, foiling in this darker tone, but weaving out and preserving just a little bit of those super brighter pieces as much as I can. So we're just going to finish off with this whole foiling, and then we'll get to the lightest pieces of the hair further on into the surface. Now that I'm getting closer to the top, I'm really trying to make sure that any of these super lighter pieces I'm going to weave out to make sure that we preserve as much brighter pieces as we can. You have to really make sure that when you do a service toning down hair, or if somebody really wants like an ashier tone, you have to make sure that you let them know that their hair is going to not just obviously appear darker, but we're toning it down, but it's probably going to appear a little bit darker than what they imagine because we're doing an ashier shade. Ashier tones appear darker, so clients need to be made aware of that it's going to be a little bit darker probably than what they imagine just because of doing an ashier shade. So as I'm working my way up to the top, because I don't want her to all of a sudden feel just like so much darker, I'm really trying to leave as much of those lighter tones as I can because I don't want her to all of a sudden be like, oh my gosh, my hair is like so dark. So we're trying to match up her color as best as we can to her natural. But again, because it's going to be ashy, it's going to be like slightly darker than what her natural is. Also, pay attention to how chunky these weaves are. We don't want to have an overall like super darker appearance. Like her goal is not to go darker. Her goal is just to tone down and add some dimension back into the hair. So I feel like doing a chunkier, more high contrast weave is the best way to go. This is going to give some like deliberate like dark ribbons throughout the hair that she'll be able to like see a little bit more of versus doing a super blended weave or like slices. That's going to create more of like just darker like little pieces of hair throughout. But because she wants to see a little bit more dimension, doing a little bit more of a chunkier weave will give her some of those like high contrast like ribbons throughout the hair. So she's gonna have like some darker ribbons throughout the hair that stand out a little bit more, and then she's gonna have some of those lighter pieces that are gonna stand out a little bit more too. So making sure that when you go through the hair, that if somebody does want a little bit more contrast and dimension in the hair, make sure that you're doing some of those like deeper weaves where you're gonna get some more of that ribbon effect throughout the hair versus just being like super blended all over. All right, now that we're working towards the front of the face, you saw that I'm setting aside like her hairline. I'm not going to touch her hairline at all. Those are some of the brighter pieces that she has, and because we are toning down quite a bit all over, then we're also going to cool down her overall lighter pieces too. She's going to feel a little bit darker, so I don't want her to feel too dark, especially around her face. So that's why I pulled away that like whole front hairline section. We're not going to add any depth to any of that at all. We're going to try to keep that as light as we can. So another thing is that because we're adding this darker tone to her hair, her lightest pieces are going to stand out a little bit more. So she's going to feel like she has a little bit more higher contrast in the hair. So that's kind of the nice thing about doing the surface, is that we're not going to have to use any lightener because the lightest pieces that she already has, giving it a little bit darker hair to like lay on is going to make it stand out a little bit more and feel a little bit brighter. So but just make sure when you're toning down your client's hair that you try to make sure and keep it a little bit brighter right around the face, or else they might feel like, oh my gosh, I'm so darker on my face. So make sure, even though you're toning down all over, to not tone down around the face as much as the rest of the hair. All right, so we're just going to finish up this last foil here. And obviously everything that I'm doing on this side, I'm going to the other side and doing the same thing. I'm just doing like a few foils on this side, then go to the other side, do a few foils. And I like doing it that way back and forth because some I'm doing like a finer weave, some I'm doing like a chunkier weave. So to make sure that I'm doing it even on both sides, I like to jump back and forth instead of doing one whole side and then doing the other side, because then I might forget like where I do the chunkier weave, where I do more of a slice or a blended weave or whatever. So that's just how I like to do my work. So here is the full foil that we ended up doing. Basically a full foil of adding that depth back into her hair. So as I pull the foils out, you're going to see exactly like how much darker these ashier tones look. I mean, it almost looks black next to her hair. So this is what I mean when I say like ashier tones go a little bit darker. You just need to make your clients aware of that. All right, as we go in to do our all over toning, we're going to do a half 7-1 and half 8-0 with 6 volume. And I told her that we're going to start toning a little bit on the lighter side and see what this does. We're going to pull her whole hairline aside to make sure that we do that last so it stays lighter and doesn't go quite as dark as the rest of the hair. And we're going to let this sit for about 15 minutes. So I'm checking her hair to see if it's toning, and it looks like it's doing good so far. And I just told her, I don't know that this is going to tone down your hair. I feel like you're sitting at a level 7. So having that level 8 in there might not tone down as much as we want it to, but we'll just see, because I don't want her to feel too dark. So the last 5 minutes is when I pull in that hairline piece to start toning it down, but keep it just a little bit lighter. And we're going to dry it, just see how she feels. Does she feel like it's still too warm because we added that level 8? Do we just need to go in with that straight 7-1? And she ended up liking the tone. She felt like it toned it down just enough. So she still has a slight warmth left in the hair. She is in the military, so she can't have it like too unnatural looking. So leaving it with a slight warmth is like perfect for what she needs to do. So here's her hair all over and dry. So she's toned down. She has that depth back in her hair, but it's just still slightly warmer, but definitely much more cooled down. So she was happy with the tone of the hair, so we didn't have to go back through and retone. That's kind of the nice thing about ashier tones, is that they do appear darker. So even though it had that level 8 in it, that 7-1 was still cool enough and dark enough to give her an overall like cooled down appearance. The curling iron that I'm using to style her hair is T3, and it's 1 3/4 inch. And I love this curling iron for just like really big soft waves. So here we are going to just comb out her curl, and this is it for the color, for the styling, for everything. You can see that even though we didn't do any lighter pieces, adding that dark back in there is making those lighter pieces really stand out. So I'm really glad that we were able to still create like a nice soft lighter like pieces in the hair without having to do any bleach or anything like that. All right, and here's her before again. No dimension in the hair, just too brassy and light all over. And then here is the after. Definitely some contrasting pieces in the hair. She has like those brighter pieces that really stand out a lot more instead of just being too overwhelming all over. And she was really happy with their hair. It turned out to be like a really pretty cool mushroomy tone. She loved it. I loved it. I think it's really, really pretty. And thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you like this video, and don't forget to like and subscribe.